Hello and welcome to Intentional Critical Conversations, lifting our voices around the world. I'm your host and academic coordinator, Sarah Ann Samito. I'd like to take a moment to thank you all, first and foremost, for being on this call with us today. And I'd just like to remind you of some of the things that we are doing here at Cape Cod Community College as we still push through COVID-19, as unfortunately it seems in this world today, month after month, week after week, if not day after day, there's a new horror, a new tragedy that we face. So I'd ask today that you remember our motto, our changing lives through the 21st century. And just as important, remember serving, protecting, and community. I'd like to also bring everyone's attention to the fact that it marks the 1-year anniversary of a first-year responder's loss of life, Miss Breonna Taylor, and equally as important, a gentleman who was taken away from us from the Yarmouth Police Department, Mr. Gannon, Sean Gannon, age 32. We lost him about 36 months ago while he was protecting and serving the Barnstable County community. So very important there. Just as important, a recent loss of life in Colorado, and really disturbing loss of life, hatred taken out on women of the Asian community in Atlanta. So many times we say, what can we do as a community? How do we move forward? How do we come together? We're very protective of our students in higher education. We're very protective of our curricula and pedagogy, and we're protective of our thought process and hearts. So I ask that today we really take a moment to realize why we do this work in the community, why we take an anti-racist stance, why we use terminology such as ally, Pan-Africanism, being awakened, becoming awoke. So very important there. What are we doing here at this college? Not only events such as this, but recall our one book program that we have here at the college, The Hate U Give, with the young lady Star. That committee will be holding a standout for peace and unity on Saturday, April 24th, 2 to 4:30 p.m. We know we've come a long way. We've pushed through COVID, but we know we still, as a college community, have a long way to go. And we have a lot of artists on the call today, new authors on the call. We have Bostonians and playwrights and composers. So what do we do when we are faced with tragedy and adversity? We write, we create, we compose, perhaps construct a play or deconstruct a play. And I'd like to bring your attention to a young Asian American woman who's a friend of ours here at Cape Cod Community College and a member of the Cape Cod Theater Company family, Howard's Junior Theater Company family, Hannah McLaughlin, excuse me. She was very instrumental last year in responding to the loss of life of Miss Breonna Taylor and George Floyd. She created something for BIPOC people called A Time to Listen, that if you go to capecodtheatercompany.org, you can view that presentation just simply by clicking on virtual events. Most recently, in the year of the ox and Chinese New Year, she created a Lunar New Year celebration where you will not only see Hannah perform, but Heather Zhuang and Song and his brother from Pippin, who are very active in the Cape Cod Theater family. Please take a look at what these Asian Americans are doing, not only on Cape Cod, but in greater Boston area and New York. And this is the year of the ox, as they are celebrating a talented cast of performers. So very important when we do this work, sometimes we recall those who have gone before us and we recall those who are present. And we all know, me being a Canterbridgian and Bostonian, I like to recall people from Boston. Earlier on in the year, when we started to create this program, Judge Richard Chin, who is still very much with us, who is enjoying retirement, he was the first Asian American of Chinese descent to be appointed at the Superior Court judge level, or judge period, in Massachusetts, in the Dukakis administration. Just as important, if you've grown up in the Metro Boston area, Metro Cambridge area, you may recall the name of Miss Joyce Chen. She had several restaurants, Harvard Square, Central Square, North Cambridge, and near MIT. oftentimes we would turn on PBS TV and we would see Julia Childs run, but we didn't often see Miss Joyce Chen. However, she did have a program. She was a prominent Asian American in the Boston and Cambridge area. So please remember that as we support our brothers and sisters in blue, our first responders, our firefighters, and our Asian brothers and sisters. And today you're here to meet a lovely young lady who is not only lifting her voice around the world, but it just calls us to lift every voice and sing. Once again, if you grew up in the Boston area, you know who coined that song, a first family, African-American family from Boston, the Johnson family, who were New England Conservatory graduates. That song was often played at your high school graduations, depending on which high school you went to. So I'd like for you to remember all of that and think of the Women's Heritage Trail in the city of Boston. We have fallen sisters there who have long passed, but they left a mark. Mana Vasquez, who was one of the founding mothers of the Puerto Rican Day Festival in Boston. And on that day, no matter what your color, shape, or size or ethnic background was, you were truly Taino, and you wore tribal paint, and you marched and danced proudly to bomba music. And also just important, Frida Garcia, who was from Dominican Republic, who was a social worker and led the charge for children of all colors to have equity in their community. And she was very prominent during the Boston busing crisis. So today I'd like for you to remember all of that. And, you know, we have a lot of proud people on the call today of Indigenous heritage. And we speak often of the West Indian, whether it's the Taino, the Arawak, the Caribe, but closer to home, we have someone from the Mashpee Wampanoag Nation, Miss Sharman Brown, a student here who is a student in early childhood education, who I'd like to have come out and tell you how Wampanoag women do it, how they make things happen, and of a historical Wampanoag figure. So over to you, Sharman.
Katapatash Sarah Ann. Kui kwasanamu natasuis unoyanas kanutomas masipiat duikontam kanunanat yuki sakat. Hello, everyone. My name is Sharman Brown, and my native name is Blue Shell. I'm from Mashpee, Massachusetts, and a member of the Mashpee Wampanoag tribe, and I'm honored to be with you today. I'd like to take a moment to acknowledge the Wampanoag Nation as the original caretakers of their ancestral land where we reside. I'm also a student here at Cape Cod Community College and was honored to be asked to celebrate Women's History Month with you today by sharing a story about a Wampanoag woman. And as in most tribal nations, women hold important roles in their communities. And in some tribes, it is the clan mothers who decide who will be the next chief. In fact, the Wampanoag word for woman is mahtamwasas and is translated to one who leads or one who has the last say. Clara Peters, also known as Dancing Moon, was a Wampanoag woman who was a fabulous, fierce mahtamwasas. Miss Clara was born in Mashpee in 1926 as the third of 8 children and was the great-great-grandchild of Blind Joe Amos, a famous ordained Wampanoag preacher who led the Woodlot Revolt of Indian independence in an act of civil disobedience in the 1800s. Ms. Clara, after graduating from Falmouth High School in 1944, went on to secretarial school, which was uncommon for young women during that time who typically married and started families. When her father sadly passed away from a heart attack, Clara decided to seek election to the Mashpee Board of Selectmen, a position her father held for many years. When Miss Clara was elected, she became the first woman and first Wampanoag woman to serve on the board at the age of 30. Later, Miss Clara was elected chairperson of the Mashpee Board of Selectmen, and in those days, the chairperson automatically became the chief of police. This meant that she became the first woman chief of police in the town of Mashpee, overseeing a police force full of men. And I have a picture here I'd like to show you of Miss Clara, if you can see that. Isn't she beautiful? This picture was featured in Ebony magazine, and the gentleman in the squad car happens to be my grandfather. So Miss Clara was also an avid golfer, and on a visit to Hawaii, while playing golf, she met her future husband, Patrick Kelly Inouye. And Miss Clara became one of the top women amateur golfers in Massachusetts and in the region. And in her honor, her daughter, Tricia, hosted the Clara Louise Kelly Inouye Memorial Golf Classic in Mashpee for 10 years, the proceeds of which benefited tribal college-bound students. I did not have the pleasure of meeting Miss Clara, but I do know her daughter, Trish, who continues to carry on that tradition of fabulous, fierce, unencumbered Wampanoag women who stay involved in service to their communities. Thank you for allowing me to honor this Wampanoag woman during Women's History Month with you. And here's hoping that women like Miss Clara and other Black, Brown, and Indigenous women's stories make their way into our history books. Manat ka niko na hachik, katapatanamu wachiwami kyakwasanich, anach. And now back to you, Miss Sarah Ann.
Okay, thank you, Shaman. Thank you for sharing a piece of Wampanoag heritage with us, because oftentimes people just don't know. When we speak of allyships, we say, well, what can we do? Just simply listen. And often we are asked, well, if you're African American, if you're Black, how can you also be Native American? Well, there was something, as we recall earlier on, the diaspora or diaspora, however you choose to pronounce it. Remember, so today you will have people on this call of Wampanoag heritage, Taino Arawak heritage, Caribe heritage, Seminole, Cherokee, Choctaw, Iroquois. It goes on and on, Shawnee and Shawnee. And as far as Inca, we have someone from Inca. Sometimes we think the Mayans, Incas, and Aztecs are lost. Remember, that's not that far, it's just Central America. So thank you for bringing forward, Shaman, Native American heritage to us. So now, moving a little further up the street, we'd say in the area of the Mattahunt, the Great Chief Mattahunt, and going towards Mattapan Square, Suffolk County, we have somebody who I would like to bring out. Her name is Miss Ashley Eadie. She's going to tell you all about how Black, Brown, Indigenous, all kinds of girls put it all together, make it happen, how they lift their voices around the world. And before she speaks, we have some clips that she's brought for you that we will have the Tilden Art Center play, and then Ashley will turn the program over to you.
What's really special about the Girl Scout experience is that she's surrounded by her girl peers in an inclusive, safe, fun space where she can learn to grow and develop. Families today are seeking ways to increase educational opportunities for their girls. And Girl Scouts is that supplemental educational organization that can help families bridge those gaps. We already serve 30,000 girls, and our outcomes are pretty amazing. We've got 4 pillars: STEM, outdoors, entrepreneurship, and life skills. And so within those 4 pillars, we have an array of programming and options for a girl to learn all about herself. Career development. We're going to support a girl as she looks at her career and what does the world need her to be. Community service. We're going to help a girl identify a problem in her community and then take action to help solve that problem. The entrepreneurship pillar is all about learning financial literacy skills. And with these skills, a girl is going to earn her own financial independence. We can have one-day programming, we can have programming through our troops and our badges, all the way up to our Gold Award, which is our highest achieving award. A Gold Award Girl Scout gets to see all of their hard work in action. They will enter the military 1 rank higher than their peers, and they are a standout in the college application process. Girl Scouts is different than other organizations because of this vast knowledge, and every girl is going to have a unique experience going through our programming. Troops get to decide what do they want to study, what do they want to focus on, what excites them, what are they passionate about, what do they want to pursue. That's what Girl Scouts is today. It's really in a supportive and challenging environment, helping girls understand who they are.
The idea with community programs is that we remove all of those barriers where girls are able to participate free of cost.
At school, I might not be feeling well, but when I go to Girl Scouts, I know it's like my second home, like I can feel safe there.
When you first meet the girl, I think getting them to be comfortable with you is the most challenging part, because you want them to be comfortable with you. You want to be the person that they trust. I think that's like the most challenging part. So I feel like when I'm with the girls, when I'm with the same group, I see the change in them. So it's kind of cool to see how they evolve and how they got out of their shell.
And they taught me to be the girl I am today, being strong, confident. They're teaching me new things to help me in life. And my Girl Scout teachers, they really impacted my life, making me a stronger person each day.
So I've watched some of these girls grow up, from little girls to the cadets and high school seniors. Whatever they choose to do in life, they can go ahead and do it. So I've seen them all, and it's been a wonderful experience.
Once you're in Girl Scouts, they don't want to leave, and we don't see a big exodus. So it's really hard to get new people in, because unless we increase the staffing, we have a long waiting list for students.
There's a level of stress and awareness that these girls have that I certainly didn't have when I was, in kindergarten and first grade. So I feel like our modules do a lot of adaptation for what this group of girls is experiencing.
When I think of our partnership with the Girl Scouts of Eastern Mass, I feel that our citizens and the Girl Scouts are having a great impact on these young women. Our colleagues really believe in the power of partnership. Partnering with the Girl Scouts allows us to give our time and our talent and engage with really true partnership to help these young women in their financial futures.
I stay with Girl Scouts because they make me a better person each day. They make me get the confidence I need, the self-esteem I need, the positivity I need, the smiles I need, everything to make my life happy. I love Girl Scouts because I can do stuff that I've never done before, and I like it because it's not like school where you sit down, the teachers give you paper from a lesson and you do it. They teach you things and you can show other people each day how to do it.
When she started with the Girl Scout, she formed like friendship. She had close girls who were really good to her, and they become team members and friends, and it was amazing since then.
I stay with Girl Scouts because they make me a better person each day. They make me get the confidence I need, the self-esteem I need, the positivity I need, the smiles I need, everything to make my life happy.
Thank you, Tilden Arts Center. So now let's welcome Director of Community Engagement for Eastern Massachusetts, our guest speaker, Ms. Ashley Eadie. Welcome, Ashley.
Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you, Ms. Sarah Ann and Cape Cod Community College and the IDEA Committee for inviting me to be a part of your series today. I am excited to share my story of Girl Scouts and my journey in this process and my lifetime. And I would want to start by painting a picture with you of the history of Black Girl Scouts. So let's start in 1912. In Savannah, Georgia, 1912, that's when Juliet Lowe, the founder of the Girl Scout movement, created Girl Scouts of USA as we know it. Soon after, there was the third Girl Scout troop that began right here within our Massachusetts footprint in New Bedford, the Red Rose Troop. This troop was one of the first known troops to welcome African-American girls into Girl Scouting. As we continued in this timeline, African-American troops were starting to form as early as 1917. However, we were still in the midst of Jim Crow laws. So Girl Scouts, African-American girls were not truly and officially acknowledged as Girl Scouts at that time. So In 1913, 20 years from when Juliet Lowe founded the start of Girl Scouts, we start to see our first all African-American troop in the South in Richmond, Virginia. This troop was known as the Bird Troop 34, led by Miss Maggie Walker. This troop met right on what was Virginia Union University. And Miss Maggie Walker, she was the first Black bank president. So she really devoted her life and her time to the civil rights movement and the overall advancement of African Americans and women. Similar to Miss Maggie Walker's passion of bringing Girl Scouts and creating that space for African American girls, we have Miss Josephine Holloway, who also fought for all African American girl troops in the South. She formed multiple troops in Tennessee between 1924 and 1942. During that time, she engaged hundreds of girls, potentially over 300 Girl Scouts. She started with a women's shelter, and it continued to grow wherever she was able to make those connections. Miss Holloway made several attempts to request to make her Girl Scout troops, or make her girl troops of African American girls, official Girl Scout affiliated troops. However, she was denied. So in 1933, she was denied the right to have her girls officially acknowledged as Girl Scouts. However, she continued to make those requests. And by 1942, this is 30 years later, she was able to officially register her first group of African American Girl Scouts. As we continued, so we're now looking almost 40 years from when we started the founding of Girl Scouts. Girl Scouts of USA in the 1950s, this is when they began to desegregate troops at a national level. So in the 50s, Girl Scouts really became a figure within the civil rights movement. Even Dr. Martin Luther King called Scouts a force for desegregation based on what they were doing at that time within their at the national level. Girl Scouts continuing to be that force for desegregation. They launched a program in the late 1960s, so about 1969, they launched a program to improve race relations within Girl Scouting. So as we start to see this transition over those 60 years of Girl Scouting, we now look at the Black leadership within Girl Scouting. It wasn't until 1975 with Dr. Gloria D. Randall Scott, she became the first Black national president of Girl Scouts of USA. So we're starting to see these figures come in at that national level. Even locally in Boston, we had dedicated volunteers like Miss Molly Dawson, who was a Girl Scout alum and continues to be active with Girl Scouts troop at the 12th Baptist Church. She's been volunteering for 37 plus years. We have volunteers like Miss Beverly King, who's a service unit quarter in Mattapan for many years, Miss Mary Falk, who was service unit, who was known for her love of camping and really getting all of us involved with the outdoors. So as leaders start to change and more programs started to become available for girls, and we started to connect with surrounding troops and towns like Roxbury and Dorchester, they started to work together. So now we're opening up even more opportunities for partnerships and for volunteers and girls to get more involved in the community. So as I mentioned, we have local trailblazers and champions of Girl Scouts like Miss Sarah Ann Shaw, who was the first female African-American reporter. She's also a Girl Scout alum, and she was a member of the Melina Cass Girl Scout troop right in Roxbury. We have radio personality Pebbles, who was a former Girl Scout volunteer. And I remember her as an active adult as I was a girl growing up in Girl Scouting. So let's talk a little bit about where I come into this in Boston. I participated in a program called METCO, which bused inner city students to suburban school districts for who participated in the program. So I went to school in Brookline. Since I was going to school in Brookline, I was pretty much in school or commuting to school anywhere from 6 a.m. to 6 p.m. And then with after school programs, it was difficult to do more within my community. Girl Scouts allowed me to find that connection and build a connection, make local friends, and get involved with my community beyond my church. So Girl Scouts in the 1990s, which is when I started Girl Scouts, they were very active and visible, especially in Mattapan, where I began my Girl Scout journey. I remember there was a Girl Scout Sunday in March where I saw girls participating in a flag ceremony, and it brought back fond memories from my mother, who was a Girl Guide in the Republic of Trinidad and Tobago during her teenage years. So my mother found a local troop for me to join. She became my co-leader. She became a co-leader of my troop. And it was there that I started to see strong Black women in leadership roles within the community. So our troop leaders, they had to be creative, they worked together. We could really see that they wanted all of us girls to try new things and to develop leadership skills so that we can continue this, what they have started for us within our own community. They helped us travel. We went to, I remember going to Sesame Park, which I knew nothing of at the time, but it was these little moments that they were able to put together for us that we do remember. So fashion shows, sleepovers, camping trips, those are the things that I remember from those leaders and in that space for my Girl Scouting experience. Girl Scouts, it was where I feel I started to build my confidence. It helped me gain public speaking skills. I was extremely shy. I whispered to talk, and I'm able to talk to you now. And I do attribute that to Girl Scouts and my time there and what I was able to develop in all of my badge work. I built a business mindset through selling cookies. I loved and I pushed to be the top seller for as many years as possible while I was in Girl Scouts. And I really learned to appreciate the outdoors. That it's not normally something that I would see in my Mattapan neighborhood. You go hang out in the park, have fun, but it was different. You know, you get to appreciate the outdoors with through Girl Scouts. So I will say Girl Scouts, you hear all the time, it's lifelong friendships, but it really is. I have my close friends, they are my sisters today, and I do nothing without them. So I have these lifelong friendships. I started Girl Scouts when I was 5, and I went all the way through to high school. That's not something that was common to see. My Daisy troop that had 20 girls at the time became a senior troop of 4 girls. It was a pretty big difference, but I still was determined. I earned my Gold Award, which is the highest award in Girl Scouting, as well as my 3 other Girl Scout sisters. And that award, I was able to advocate, work with, and connect with a large Scout troop in Haiti. We were able to work with them, address their needs. We were part of them for many years, and we educated our Mattapan community about scouting and about those girl guides and Girl Scouts that we talked about previously. Girl Scouts was a safe space. I felt I had a voice. People saw me as a leader. I was given more responsibilities in other areas of my life, such as school or at church. They started to push me to make announcements and let me come out of my shell. My opinion was respected a little bit more. I got to do things that to me seemed a bit out of the ordinary, like sleeping over in a mall. It was a lot of fun, a little out of the ordinary for me. So having these new experiences, as I mentioned, Girl Scouts was where I first traveled. It was where I first went to day camp, and it's where I learned about policy and governance. I was selected to be a part of the national delegate as a girl. And it was where I was able to give my voice and my opinion about a Girl Scout policy. So these are some of the memories that, like my mom wanted to give to me, I want to help create for other girls of color within the community. So going back to my mom being a Girl Guide in Trinidad, Girl Scouts of USA is a part of the World Association of Girl Guides and Girl Scouts. So there are 5 world centers: Mexico, Switzerland, India, Africa, and the United Kingdom. Today, there are Girl Guides and Girl Scout associations in 150 countries across the world, including the United States of America. So troops are able to connect with girls across the movement, get resources, and even visit those world centers. However, not right now due to COVID, but Girl Scouts of Eastern Massachusetts is only one part of a much larger movement around the world. Recognizing the importance for us to have staff that represent the various countries and cultures of our girls in order to build strong relationships and those positive experiences. Our Camp and Outdoor team, they're part of an international collaboration that helps us recruit qualified camp staff from all over the world. They have recruited staff from England, Mexico, and this year would have even been the first year that we have staff from Jamaica. Once again, because of COVID, we are unable to have those international staff this year, but our camp staff and outdoor team, they intend and will continue to accept international staff. And we are excited to broaden which countries we are able to include staff to work with our girls. So looking at my role right now within community engagement and with the Girl Scouts of Eastern Massachusetts, as we move forward to widen our lens around diversity, equity, inclusion, access, and racial justice, GSEMA is putting extra efforts into supporting girls, families, troop leaders, and community partners in order to bring that Girl Scout experience to girls wherever they are. We continue to make Girl Scouts inclusive of all who identify as a girl, the wide range of cultures, beliefs, races, and languages within our footprint, so that together we can be that change that we want to see in the world. Last year, a group of staff and myself, we started a series called Lift Your Voice. We kicked it off with a celebration for Juneteenth, but last spring was a pretty difficult time. And there was this need to create a space where we can talk about racism, provide learning opportunities for all. And if it was something that we felt we needed as staff, we wanted to make sure we were bringing that to our members. So through this series, we've been able to create safe spaces for all girls and adults, members and non-members, to talk about, learn, ask questions on topics such as microaggressions, stereotypes, allyship, code switching. We talk about the intersectionality of social movements and groups. Thus far, we've had 6 sessions in this series, and we've been able to reach hundreds of girls and adults. So it's been great to see that there is this need for connection, there's this need for learning and growth, and that we're able to provide that space for us to, for us and for all of these members and participants to, excuse me, to learn and grow together. The goal of this series is to really have girls be able to share what they learn, whether it's with a friend, a family member, and for those adults to feel comfortable to have conversations with their troop of girls, or whether they're talking to their families and others in their network. It's a learning space. We're all learning together. We are growing together, and we want to emphasize self-empowerment. We want to highlight there's power in your voice and in your words, that advocacy, is important. We want to talk about and show that taking small steps and every small action does create a larger impact somewhere. So in addition to this Lift Your Voice series, we also created a family program. It's called Cultural Connections. This is where we will be celebrating a new country and a new culture tradition. During each session, we invite families to learn together, and in this, whether through this activity that we decide to do based on the country, and we are highlighting countries around the world that represent and where our girls right here within Eastern Massachusetts have a connection to. So bringing it all together for where we are in our spaces. My vision for Girl Scouts, I want to start to see more troops that serve girls of color. These might be girls who may not have any Girl Scout experience or connection. I want to start to see more troops, whether they're in schools, libraries, community centers, faith communities, wherever there are girls, we are all Girl Scouts. Even our immigrant families who have connections to as Girl Guides or even Rangers. We're all connected and we all have that passion and drive for united advocacy. I hope to continue to really collaborate with more community partners in order to bring and create more girl opportunities. It's important to have volunteers from the community who can relate to connect with the girls and with the families, whether they're leading the troops, they're guest speakers, or they're just working on certain skills with the girls. Everyone can help. It's something that we can learn to grow together. I would love to see bilingual troops and having volunteers who can lead these troops for the girls. I would like to see more family engagement when possible. I know that it can be hard in our communities with caregivers that are working very hard to provide for their families, but we have big sisters and aunties and those neighborhood friends that can be involved. I grew up knowing and being a part of that phrase where it takes a village to raise a child. You go somewhere, it's family or not, but you know they're related, they are connected to you and you will respond. So having those consistent volunteers is important for our girls just the same. So to this day, I see so many Girl Scout alum, former volunteers who are in their 60s, 70s, 80s, or even their 90s, like Miss Molly Dawson, who still enjoy being involved and contributing in small ways with their local troops. They like seeing those girls grow up, they change. Even our staff who work with girls within schools, they see them grow over the years, and those girls light up when they see and they know it is time for Girl Scouts. My mom, 30 years later, is still leading an ambassador troop and actively helping where she can. So Girl Scouts has progressed in many areas, but it has been through the work of the volunteers, all of these trailblazers who, and not staff, it is those, I'm gonna emphasize, it is those volunteers in the community, those trailblazers they are the heart of the work that we do in Girl Scouts. And it's with those volunteers that we are able to serve the girls who need us. Girl Scouts is much more than cookies and crafts and camping. And over the years, we continue to expand what that looks like in bringing new opportunities to girls. In addition to those traditional badges and outdoor skills, Girl Scouts offers programs on coding, space science, media, automotive careers, financial literacy, and so much more that I didn't even have as a girl growing up. Our camp, it is an experience like no other. And we truly bring out leadership skills in girls. We challenge girls to find solutions to issues that are important to them. Through high awards, we give them a chance to explore careers and activities. And these are all things that may or may not be common in other areas of their lives. as an organization, we are modernizing and welcoming girls to have these conversations, to become advocates in their community in order to make the world a better place. However, it is just as important that we have volunteers and staff and counselors who look like our girls, who are positive, consistent role models and strong leaders who can stand by and let the girls lead the way. So, Miss Sarah Ann, we have Girl Scouts of color, we have volunteers of color. We need to continue to work together in order to grow and pass on this legacy of Girl Scouts. And I'm hoping that this community here can continue to help us do that.
Okay, thank you, Ashley. Thank you so much. And you know, public speaking skills, public service, serving, protecting, it's all part of what we're attempting to continue to do here and expand here at Cape Cod Community College. So we will be switching to the Q&A section. You would type those questions directly to Mia Hazlitt, and she will answer those for you. But before we jump to that, we have a message that has come in for Miss Ashley Eadie. So Tilden Art Center, when you are ready, please play that message from Dylan.
Hi, my name is Dylan, and I'm from the Girl Scout Troop 82160 in Harwich. Diversity in scouting is important to me because everyone is different and special in their own way, and everybody somewhere to fit in. So if we give them that space, they will feel accepted. And when someone feels accepted, it brings joy and light out of them. A diverse and inclusive troop is what makes scouting special to me.
Mia, I know some questions have come in all the way from New York City, so whenever you are ready. Thank you.
Sure. Ashley, I have a question that came in. How are you going to make inroads into communities and lives that are resistant to discussing challenges or vulnerabilities? How do you ensure confidentiality and social and emotional protection among teens whose passions and loyalties can be volatile?
Thank you for that question. I think I want to start by highlighting in Girl Scouts, we really do our part to focus on empowering girls and what they can do versus what they cannot do. So Girl Scouts is an optional space. I say this all the time. It may not be for everyone, whether it's girl or adult. And whenever we do have our Girl Scouts come together, it is looked at almost as that, sacred time for the girls where they can be themselves, being their authentic selves, and come to the Girl Scout space with their Girl Scout sisters to learn and to share. We never force girls or adults to share anything that makes them feel uncomfortable. And we also highlight that this is it's a safe space to make mistakes. We are not perfect. So being able to allow girls to make a mistake, or for the adults to make a mistake in something that they're saying and work together to address it, it's a way for us to learn together and bring everyone into the conversation versus pointing out or having anyone stand apart. So we really do what we can with our volunteers through trainings for them to create those spaces that the girls can trust and feel comfortable to share as they see fit and have conversations that really do impact or reflect what's happening in the world or in their environment.
Okay. And I have another question. What's been called fake Indian lore that has been found at summer camps? What has the Girl Scouts done to improve or correct this cultural appropriation?
Yes. So there has been that history of that cultural appropriation. However, and I'm going to speak specifically for Girl Scouts of Eastern Massachusetts, because I do know that we're 2 councils in Massachusetts, and other councils in other states may not be where we are, but within the last, I'm going to say 12 years, our outdoor team has really made a commitment to only singing songs that do not call out any specific group of people, in order to ensure that everyone does feel included, and so that we can still participate in the traditions of singing songs while at camp. I know that even they've taken out the shark song, and to be mindful of the Cape Cod community, where we know that incidents do happen. So really taking the time to make sure we're training our counselors, our staff, and anything that's given to girls and families within Eastern Massachusetts, we have really done some time to take that out of content that is shared. And we continue to learn and grow. So if you do see something, I always encourage in any area within Girl Scouting, speak up, share, let us know how we can be better, because we're not perfect and we do need to all continue to grow and do better so that we are avoiding those incidents that have happened in the past.
Okay, thank you. I also have another question. Up to what age are the girls allowed to join?
Absolutely. So girls can join Girl Scouts, become members from 5 years old and in K2. And they go all the way through 12th grade in high school. So we have a lot of older girl programs where they get to be trainers and do program aid and really start to practice becoming that adult, which we know they will be soon. So kindergarten to 12th grade, we have programs for all levels.
Okay. And what programs are available for sponsorship of a Girl Scout to camp because of costs?
Absolutely. We do work with individual sponsors and as well as up to corporate donors who may want to contribute financially to the financial aid for girls. That's something that we can support you with, and we do have some links on our website to do that. Even when we have individually, excuse me, members who sign up to be, anyone who volunteers who sign up to be members, they can also make that donation in that same space when they're purchasing their membership. So feel free to reach out to me directly, or you can also look for that on our website and contact our customer care team, which is customercare@gsema.org for any additional inquiries about that or anything that you have questions about.
Okay. With so much sexual identity, how is that balanced in those safe spaces?
Great question. In Girl Scouts, we make it a point to include and have spaces for anyone who identifies as a girl to feel comfortable in Girl Scouting. We also work with volunteers and our teams in terms of training and support and any resources that they may need to work with girls who come into their spaces and having conversations with the girls. Oftentimes we've learned it's the adults who have a harder time having those conversations than it is the girls. So we do create those spaces and have trainings for our adults and resources for girls to welcome everyone into our troop spaces.
Okay. And your message and the mission of the Girl Scouts is one that should have widespread exposure. What types of outreach and marketing is done to get the word out? Are there untapped resources in the community that can assist with encouraging increased membership in the Girl Scouts?
That is a great question. We do have a marketing team that does a lot of our high-level branding for Girl Scouts and supporting our recruitment efforts within all communities for Eastern Massachusetts, specifically within our communities that we might need a little bit more help. That's where I really put out that ask and look for having those community champions. So really working with those community centers, libraries, individuals who have connections to talk about Girl Scouts. bring us into your spaces, even if you just want us to sit there and share a program or just to get connected to a troop. I very often will randomly have someone that sees a Girl Scout emblem that I have, or if I have cookies, they will come up and ask, I want to get involved. What do I do? So it is something that I have noticed we tend to not have as much visibility within certain communities. And sometimes that becomes the communities where we have less volunteers who are actively working in Girl Scouts. So by having more community partners who can support us, be advocates, and share out information to families within their networks, we can then start to build up our volunteers who can do the same within their networks, and they're the ones who are also leading the troops.
Okay, well, thank you so much. That wraps it up for, oh, wait a second. Now that cookies are online, has that impacted marketing, the selling of cookies, or was a face-to-face kind of community event?
Yeah, so selling cookies was very different this year. We've actually started last couple years selling cookies online. So we already had the platform to make that happen. So we really worked with creating additional resources for girls and troop leaders to feel comfortable with finding safe ways to sell cookies, whether online, or some troops were able to do drive-by booth sales, or they were able to kind of create safe barriers to sell cookies outside. But it was very different not having that visibility of girls with what we call our booth sales, selling cookies in the community. As we are wrapping up our cookie sale, but overall, we had an amazing turnout of sales. We had so many customers who continuously support us year over year locally. And with the sales being online, girls were able to sell cookies to their family members and friends who were not living within their community. So we did really well, to my understanding. I will speak specifically for the troops that I supported in our communities. The girls didn't skip a beat. We had less girls selling, but they were able to sell more, it felt like, and they still were able to earn their recognitions and participate in the cookie program sale. A little different, and we are hoping and would love to get back to in-person booth sales eventually, but they did an amazing job for what we were able to do to keep them safe this year.
Okay, and we have one more question before we go to the video. Are leaders and volunteers vetted before being able to work with the Scouts?
Yeah, so all of our adult members, including staff who work with girls or have access to personal information, they are asked to complete a KERRY story. We do this to make sure that there's no larger concerns. And we also, in addition to the KERRY story, they also have to complete a training. So it really is working with those community partners, I'm going to say this again, to help us identify and really talk about what it means to be a volunteer. Yes, oftentimes not everyone is a good fit to be the primary leader, but there are other ways that they can support as a volunteer. Maybe they're not handling money. Maybe they're just assisting with field trips. Maybe they are, bringing snacks to the girls because they might be hungry when they're in troop meetings, when they're meeting in person. So not every volunteer needs to be a direct troop leader, but every adult does need to complete a KERRY story, whatever they're helping in any way. We also have volunteers that sometimes help in one-off programs, or they're episodic volunteers, so maybe they're helping with events in the community or at the council level. So there are different ways apart from just being a primary leader. But we do ask all adults register, complete a KERRY story, and there's some form of training.
Annabelle, I think you can unmute yourself. If not, there you go. Are you unmuted?
Yeah, thank you.
Okay.
My question was, I used to be a Girl Scout. I lived in Florida, and I really enjoyed it until I started getting older and realized that I was queer. So my question was, how does Girl Scouts address the alienation of queer girls within the organization and within individual troops? Because I found that it can be sort of homogenous in that it's like, if you, at least, I mean, I grew up in a pretty conservative town in Florida, so it was probably different, but just that it felt very much like if you didn't fit a certain mold, that you just weren't as worthy as the other girls.
Yeah, well, thank you for your sharing that, and I'm sorry that that was your experience. I know that it can be hard for individuals in general to accept change, and unfortunately, that impacts a lot of our members, like yourself. In our council, Girl Scouts of Eastern Massachusetts, we truly do make every effort to be as inclusive. We really don't create additional labels. As I mentioned, we want to create anyone who identifies as a girl, we want them to have that space. And as long as we are, or the girls and the adults are behaving in appropriate and safe ways within our troop meeting spaces, that's our priority. Making sure that we can have conversations and be as inclusive as possible. In our council, we continue to do trainings for staff and volunteers that are aiming to address and really highlight the intersectionality of some of various social movements, which is including how we are addressing our LGBTQIA community. So that's something that is continuously going to grow, and it's not going to look the same in every council. But I truly believe, and as we start to work with our communities and really listen to our girls much more, I hope that we are able to include everyone and really make everyone feel comfortable, and that those who may have some concerns are able to speak up so that we can work with you to be better, as we are all learning to be better individuals.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Really appreciated your talk, and it was very informative, and I learned a lot, and I'm really appreciative of all the work you're doing.
Thank you so much. And again, I appreciate you for sharing your experience. And if you ever want to get back involved, I always say I'm having. Are you a volunteer?
I would like to be, if that's okay. Like, is that something?
Absolutely.
I'm moving to Western Mass. Is there a second?
There's a Western Mass Council.
Yeah.
But honestly, I have just as much fun, and I get so much out of Girl Scouts as an adult as when I was a girl, and having just endless bliss of fun doing activities. I truly am still learning and growing. The first time I was always scared of animals, I was able to ride a horse for an hour for the first time on a Girl Scout property.
That's very scary.
It was.
Horses terrify me.
So again, as an adult, we still can learn ourselves. And give back to the girls. So absolutely, I encourage anyone, all alums, if you can find a Girl Scout council in your community and help in whatever way you are comfortable helping with.
That sounds great. Yeah, I love learning from children. That's just a general thing, because they have so much to offer, and it's always fun to hear what they have to say. So I will definitely get into that. Thank you.
Thank you again. I appreciate that.
So now, sticking with the spirit of Women's History Month, last month we had Putting It All Together and Making It Work, the women's panel, and one of our guests was our very own Mia Hazlitt, and she introduced her new work, Going Through It. So today, I would like for Mia to just touch base about a very prolific chapter of her book. It is chapter 13, called Lessons Learned. She's going to read from that and tell you a little bit about that chapter, and she will actually take some questions from you, and I think that'd be a great way to conclude the program. So whenever you're ready, Mia.
Well, thank you so much. Yes, I wrote a book called Going Through It. It was at the time that I had separated from my ex-husband. I was unemployed. I had home insecurity and ultimately had 2 kids to raise. So I went on this journey, and through this entire journey, chapter 13 is the second to the last chapter, which really talks about all the lessons I learned while going through that. Because in life, yes, there are barriers, there are obstacles, there are things that are going to be thrown at you to stop you, but ultimately, you know, it's up to you to be resilient, to be able to persevere. And I was able to do that and author this book going through it. So I'll read the chapter, the first paragraph, and called Lessons Learned. I mentioned in the beginning of this book, there were 2 ways this story could end. Some phenomenal breakthrough where I can stand and claim an emotional victory of success, or not. While I continue with my struggle at my parents' house with my kids and the stupid cat, living in their basement in a more expensive state, receiving less money, still wondering how this will all end. I did finally find a little part-time job. Going through this life trial has taught me wonders about myself. I will share what I've learned as best I can. If you can apply any of my lessons to your life, I'm happy I wrote this book. I'm happy I wrote it while going through it with no glorious ending. For me, it kept this book much more real and grounded. And ultimately, there are about 10 lessons that I learned while going through it. So I will put the link to the book in the chat. And if there's any questions, I'm open for any questions you may have.
And Mia, this is where people can purchase a book, this www.amazon.com.
Yep, it's on.
Thank you.
Okay, I have a question. Let's see. Okay. Is there anything I would have done differently? You know, while I was going through it, yes, there were so many things that I would have done differently. Being here now on the other side of everything, no, because through this, I learned everything happens for a reason. And I wouldn't be where I was right now if I had changed what I had done. So I'm happy where I'm at. One of the lessons that I learned, wow, out of the 10, I would say that one of the biggest lessons is the fact that I can't do it on myself, all by myself. One of the things I thought was, you know, I'm a strong woman, independent woman. I can do this all on my own, and I couldn't. So when I finally kind of dropped that mantra and got rid of that and really got real with myself, my circumstances, and becoming okay with not being what's considered strong, you know, there was so much grace and mercy that I found in my family and friends that allowed me to really be weak for what I was going through. And that is what that's where I really think I found my strength. Let me think another one came in. No, that's all. So thank you so much for having me, Sarah Ann.
Okay, thank you, Mia. And before we close out the program, I have typed into the chat CapeCodTheaterCompany.org, a Lunar New Year celebration. This is to honor our Asian brothers and sisters there. As I said, this program was put together by a young lady, Hannah McLaughlin, who is a teacher here on Cape Cod, an artist and educator. She's performed throughout Cape Cod and the Boston area. And you will also see Heather Zhuang Wu, who is a noted New York, Boston-based actress, and Jenna Lee Scott, who made history possibly by being the first Asian Tracy Turnblatt in the musical Hairspray. So please check out a Lunar New Year celebration at Howard's Junior Theater / Cape Cod Theater Company. Just go to check out our virtual event. And most of all, thank you all for being on this call today. Stay well, stay blessed, stay safe, and most of all, stay lifted. And thank you. Peace, love, and light. Have a blessed day. Thank you.